I went home and I just couldn't stop thinking about her.
When you're in country and you're sitting still and idle, that's a bad sign.
She no longer had a heartbeat. She wasn't breathing. That was the first one on the chest. I started compressions first.
Need advocates. We need people that are going to hold companies, government, hold these people accountable.
So speaking of your first deployment, so graduated AIT school. How long before you were sent out on your first deployment?
It was a little over a year.
Okay.
So I got to Fort Stewart in November of 2003.
Mm-hmm.
And the platoon I ended up with, they had been back from their deployment that they had already gone on for the initial, invasion of Iraq and stuff like that. They had been back maybe a month or two. So they were a close-knit group already, which was kind of cool. So I came into like a family-esque environment. And then we had a whole bunch of training events over the next year in 2004. And then in January of 2005, made my first deployment. So, and we shipped out, I think it was like, 2:00 in the morning or something. It was middle of the night.
Middle of night.
It's just the logistics of going.
I was going to say lining up with
all the flights had to
and
line up and stuff like that, and be like, and I was private camper. I was like,
okay,
yes, Sergeant, yes, Sergeant, and that was basically me. But a smart assness to it as well.
Got it. So, when you got over there, what kind of environment was it?
So when we first got over there, we were in Kuwait for a month. And we got some new vehicles, which was kind of cool, top of the line, up armored Humvees and stuff like that. And then we made that drive from Kuwait to Baghdad. That was the most boring drive I have ever been on in my life.
Why?
I'm in the turret of a Humvee. I am the gunner for my squad leader at the time. And so I'm in the turret of the Humvee. My squad leader's in the front passenger seat. That's the TC. He's
okay.
The truck commander is what TC stands for.
And
shotgun. We had
shotgun. Got it.
And then we had our driver. So it's a 3-man team. I'm up in the top of the truck, and it's very boring. We don't have radios. We have communication equipment, but we don't have radios to listen to music. Which farther on in the deployment, we may or may not have taken an additional headset and jerry rigged it to where we could listen to music going down the road.
Okay.
Mostly good old school rock music, which I say oldies, but it was from the 90s.
Oh, you stopped that.
It was only like 5 years old at the time, and we're listening to this music. And nowadays, I'm driving down the road, and it's like, oh, the classic rock station is playing stuff I grew up with. Oh my God, I'm old.
Know how that feels. So you guys, I'm sorry. How long was the drive from Kuwait to Baghdad?
I don't know mileage wise. I know it was about 12 hours.
Oh my gosh!
Split up into different breaks and stuff like that.
What does a break look like for your 3? How many Humvees?
I think we had 2 squads worth, so it was about 6 or 7.
Okay.
All going up at one time.
All 3-man crews?
Yes.
Okay.
Our platoon sergeant and our lieutenant, they were just added to one of the vehicles, so those trucks had 4 people in it.
Okay.
But yeah, we're just driving up, all the main supply routes going up to Baghdad, and you'd stop at different areas. There was, different forward operating bases along the way. So you'd stop, refuel, use the bathroom, get an MRE. If you stop somewhere that had a chow hall and be like, hey, they have their chow going on right now. Let's go get some food. get some food.
So, what was your objective, your squad, your crew? What were you guys going to Baghdad to do?
We did a lot of different things, but we were on the south side of Baghdad. It was actually Fob Rustamaya, which, I mean, if you look at the history of Rustamaya, it was
Rustamaya, is that just a geographical location? Is
it was
it
actually,
a
I
city?
don't know exactly how it became named, but before we were there, before any U.S. forces were there, it was actually an Iraqi army base.
Okay, so it's referring to a building, like a
Well,
destination.
kind of like a fort here in the U.S.
Okay, gotcha.
So,
Okay.
like when I said, I was down at Fort Stewart, and if I was, Iraqi, it was at Fort Rustamaya.
Okay.
It's kind of like along the same lines,
Gotcha.
But part of it was U.S., part of it was Iraqi, and there was a lot of, working together while we were there. But we did a lot of stuff like working with the Iraqi police, trying to teach them not police tactics, but like room clearing procedures and help them out on what missions they were. It was kind of like a support role
Okay.
for a little while. We did work at a detainee holding area, where we get the bad guys that anybody brings in. We worked with working basically at the jail, which was on Restamaya, so that was kind of cool. I got to see, that was really the first time I saw somebody that had only intentions of harming us and our way of life.
What was it like working with the Iraqi military?
I mean, they kind of, just like working with any military, it's, they have a basis of tactics. Theirs is not as advanced as ours. We are better tactically. So I think that's probably one of the big things why we were, over there helping them. Because, their leadership was just completely dismantled and, they were rebuilding the country. This was 2005, the invasion was 2 years prior. So everything is like on a rebuilding phase. So we did a lot of training with the Iraqi police and just, helping them come up with their tactics and how they, clear buildings and clear rooms and stuff like that. I remember one of the Iraqi police stations that we were at. Um, our squad leader, he was, there was it was 2 stories and then you got the roof, but they were on the roof because we had these walls like on the top sides of the Iraqi police station. I mean, it was Iraqi built, so they had their walls that they had built, but there's a big flat area on the roof. So I remember just, watching my squad leader try and teach them, how to do things in specific rooms and, cutting the pie, clearing a room, stuff like that, but also teaching them basic marksmanship skills and how to treat your weapon the right way because they had no concept of that. I mean, some of them were given a rifle and be like, here, pull this, shoot bad guy. That's how they were kind of taught sometimes. So we taught them basic marksmanship skills on how to actually treat your weapon at all times as if it is loaded. Be aware of your target and what's beyond because, if you have a friendly beyond your target, you may hit them. Just be cognizant of, the respect you have to give a weapon whenever you use it.
So, as you guys came in to in country, is that still
In country?
Still
yes.
used? Okay. Talk to me like I'm a 2-year-old when it comes to this stuff. I mean, I'm learning right along with the audience. So you said working with them, it was really just really teaching them some basic stuff. It sounds like. How far back did you have to go in basics in order to get through to them? And plus, you guys had a language barrier, right? I mean, were there interpreters?
Oh yeah, we had
everywhere.
Interpreters. Some of the Iraqis actually had a base knowledge of English.
Okay.
So not all of them needed interpreters. It still helped. The majority of them didn't speak a lick of English, but there were those few that have some kind of education and they learned a little bit of English. How far back they had to teach them, I don't know. I was not a part of that. That was my leadership doing. They were doing everything. I really wasn't a part of like the instruction.
Okay.
So I just knew some of it was going on. I didn't know the specifics of it. I was given a mission to, whenever we go out somewhere, we have to set up security. I was part of the security element in our squad. So at this specific Iraqi police station, they had two towers, one on each corner, uh, opposite each other, and I was in the one on the front of the building. I'd been on the one on the back of the building once, but majority of the time I was on the one on the front.
Mm-hmm.
So it was basically just, overwatch, in case, something happened. I mean, you're in the middle of Iraq and there was a lot of people that wanted to hurt us. So we had to have some kind of security element.
I bet. And what was the Iraqi police, what was their attitude like towards you Americans coming on and vice versa? What were your attitudes towards them? And did that clash ever? I mean, I'm sure there was some of that, but for the most part, did it gel? Did it work? Did it have to build there?
It did have to build a little bit, especially with me. I was a little skeptical just because, I didn't know much about what was going on with the mission set and everything. I mean, I was, one of the lowest ranking people in the platoon. I, had only been in the Army for 2 years. I'm still learning. My leadership, they had already deployed together, 2 years before that. When I was in basic training, they were in Iraq already.
Mm-hmm.
So they had a little bit more respect for, different things that were going on.
Sounded like they had already built part of a relationship. Yeah. So you're just kind of coming in blind to that.
I was very skeptical on, working with Iraqis when we first got there, but,
why?
Just because of why we were there. And I remember the Gulf War and what my uncles, did during that time. And, but that kind of went away really quick. Because you get to sit and talk with them. Like one of the guys that was in the little tower on the front side of the building, he was Iraqi police, and he's sitting there with an AK-47 right next to me, and I'm sitting there with my machine gun, and I've got my pistol, and we're just sitting there having a conversation about different foods.
Okay.
So he had tried, and I remember one specific conversation. He loved lasagna. So one of the IPs that I worked with, several times, just sitting in this tower for a couple hours, he loved lasagna, and someone had made it, or it was, he was with one of his generals or something, with somebody from the U.S., and somebody had actually made it inside, the dining facility, and he actually got to try lasagna for the first time. I mean, honestly, our lasagna that was over there was probably not the greatest. I make better lasagna. You can ask my wife; she loves it. But yeah, we had an entire conversation about food, mainly because he loved lasagna after trying it once.
Just trying to get to know each other.
Yeah,
right. That's great. And was that kind of the general consensus? Did everybody on both sides? I mean, was everybody pretty like, hey, we're here to work together. Let's get this done.
Yeah.
Or was it like, was there any big tensions that you guys had to overcome?
I mean, there was a little bit of tension.
I mean, there's obviously quite a big culture clash there, and there's a huge language barrier. I mean, but that's kind of normal.
And we did go through like culture classes and to learn about their culture, because whenever you go on any of those types of deployments, you want to learn about what you're getting into.
Absolutely.
So we did have some culture classes. I remember getting those numerous times, and then taking pointers that the people that deployed in 2003 from our platoon, they would tell me about, do this, not this, do that, not this, stuff like that. And you never want to disrespect somebody else's culture, no matter how you feel about them. And I've always kind of understood that.
I love that, and I'm in total agreement. Was that a military lesson?
Is
that taught in the military?
Oh, yeah.
Wonderful.
We get taught culture before we go into any place, especially for those long tour deployments.
Yeah.
Because we're going to be over there for a year at a time. You definitely want to understand the culture about what's going on. You don't want to disrespect somebody, no matter what aspect of life it is. I mean, I've still grown to that. Like I I may have a certain feeling about somebody, but I'm not going to disrespect their culture.
No. Yeah.
Because
what does that
that's
do?
not them.
Yeah.
So their culture is not the individual.
So you had mentioned earlier that this was the first time when you went over for your first deployment. That's the first time that you really understood that. Forgive me how you phrased it, but that people wanted to hurt you, and you as. Can you elaborate on that? How did that revelation hit you?
So, working at the detainee holding area right there, I mean, they had some, bad people that were in a jail cell, and I was kind of, I like being the friendly person. It's just the way I am, and probably because the way I was brought up, um, I would say hi to people, even in the jail cell, which, probably might not have been the smartest idea, but, I still said hello, but I said it in their language. And the look I got out of one of the guys that were in there, I said it in his language, using his cultural aspects, and he started just banging on the door and yelling at me. The interpreter heard the entire conversation. All I did was basically say hello, hope you're all well, and moved on to the next cell. That's all I was doing. And he had basically cursed me out in Arabic and wished death upon my family. That was really the first time that it kind of clicked that there are bad people over here that want to hurt me, but yet I'm in an Iraqi police station joking around with a guy about lasagna who could have grown up a block away from the other guy. So it's a little bit weird.
So I've had a couple questions just hearing you talk. One is with your Iraqi police that you guys were working with, like you talked about lasagna and stuff like that. How long did you know these guys for, and how close of a relationship did you wind up forming? Because from some of the other veterans I've talked to, especially, in regards to the pullout and stuff like that, that was a really big deal as far as like the relationships that were formed and that sort of thing. And then also, I don't remember what the other one was. Just start there.
I mean, we did form somewhat of a relationship. I mean, you get used to talking to these people. The IPs that were there at that police station, they were, the same IPs pretty much every time we went out there. And that was their headquarters. That is their police station. We respected it. The first time I was in the tower, I was, I felt a certain kind of way because I had never talked to anybody from 100% Iraqi culture before, and now I'm in a tower with somebody that's from an entirely different country, and we're in their country, and he's got a loaded weapon right next to me, and I've got a loaded weapon, and I'm like, what do I do if something happens? So we just both sat there in silence. I don't know if he had experienced us before, but we sat there in silence for probably a good 20 or 30 minutes. And then
what finally broke the ice?
A kid fell riding his bike, and we both started laughing. So we're looking out like over an intersection. They have bicycles just like we do.
Yeah.
They're taught how to ride a bicycle just like I was taught how to ride a bicycle. And a kid hit a hole in the sidewalk and fell. He started laughing. I started laughing, and then it just started a conversation. I don't remember, where exactly that conversation went, but that's how the ice was broken. Something
it went to lasagna.
Eventually,
Andrew.
Yes, it went to lasagna. I mean, I love food. Don't get me wrong. I love pasta. I love Italian food.
So it sounds like though that's wonderful. Like you guys, but there was this awkward non-exchange for a while.
20 to 30 minute period where you stay on your side, I'm going to stay on my side.
And it took something outside of the relationship. It took a random act somewhere else in order to kind of connect you guys.
Exactly.
Yeah, but you did. It sounds like then after that, tensions kind of relieved itself, and that's great. It sounds like you guys were fairly similar. Like
kind of. He was lower ranking. I was lower ranking. He liked lasagna. I liked lasagna. It is what it is.
Hey, it's an alliance, regardless. At that point, that's good.
But that break in the ice, because he wasn't the only one I ever was in that tower with. I mean, there was 3 or 4 people over 4 or 5 months that I was in that tower with, because we went there probably like once a week. I don't remember the specifics of everything, but we were there quite often. Just our leadership was training them. Sometimes we went out there and just hung out. I don't really know the purpose of it, but I didn't really know any training was going on sometimes, and they just, we were still there. I was still in the tower. But yeah, with other people from the IP station that I ended up in the tower with, I definitely didn't wait a 20 to 30 minute conversation. So it kind of happened pretty quickly. So
you were telling us a little bit about you were saying like good morning or whatever you said to the prisoners and stuff like that, and then there was a big clash as far as like that was the first time that there's individuals really set out to like want to cause us harm and stuff like that. And then you also made a comment of like how you were raised and like how that was so jarring. How did like that first interaction or interactions after that start to shift your personality, or if it did, like as far as like who you are, how did that affect who you are?
I think it probably started a process of kind of shifting to wanting to understand more about somebody before I try and have a conversation. I will kind of close myself off from people, especially like new people. I mean, like the first time we talked, I mean, I wasn't very open, didn't really talk much. But after the last year, we had in-depth conversations.
Right.
If I get a new person in my recruiting station, I don't open up to them very quickly. Or if I move, neighbors, I will typically wait for somebody else to say something before I kind of open up. It's trying to guard myself in case I overstep.
Yeah. Sizing up the situation a little bit.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So your whole unit is at an Iraqi police station, right? And you're a security detail, and you'd set up you said two towers on top
Yeah,
of?
the
Okay.
Iraqis had 2 towers on top of the roof of the IP station, so it's like 3 stories up, but it's only like 10 feet off the roof.
Oh, gotcha. Okay, so and then you've had these interesting kind of intimate, forced relationships with some of the Iraqi police, because I mean that was to be expected going through this. But how about was there any firefights? Was there any real intense moments that you can
did end
about?
up where the leadership got intel on how or when, I don't know. I wasn't a part of that. I was still, low man on the totem pole. But apparently we were supposed to, be attacked at that IP station, or the IP station was supposed to be attacked or whatever. So on top of my Humvee that I was the gunner for, I had the Mark 19, which is a fully automatic grenade launcher. It's a grenade launcher machine gun. It shoots 40 millimeter grenades, over 300 of them a minute, and it's just you don't forget that sound.
Oh, good God!
Oh yeah! Oh hell yeah! That's I mean, you go to the range and you fire this thing. It's like do 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 do.
Was that on top of every Humvee?
No, that was just on top of mine. So I had that. One of the other guys had the 50 cal, which pretty much everybody knows what the 50 cal looks like. The Mod Deuce. It's a 50 caliber machine gun that's been around since World War II. And then the other one just had a normal, belt-fed rifle machine gun, the 240 Bravo, or might have been the 249 SAW, the squad automatic weapon, which shoots the same thing as our M4 does.
So you had a Mark 19.
I had the Mark 19. I had the big boy.
How were you chosen for that? Did you just kind of fall into
when I first got to my unit in November of 2003, met my squad leader for the first time. That's just what he had for his team, and I ended up being his gunner for the squad leader. He told me when I first got there, this is your weapon. You will know everything about it. He gave me the little manual on it. He set a time period. I think it was like, a week. He's like, you're going to know everything about this entire weapon system from back to front of this manual. And I just said, yes, Sergeant.
For such a big gun, I think that was probably a good play on his part to have one person know everything about it. Did he choose you?
Yes.
Specifically for that? Okay. How does that go?
I don't know.
Oh, all right.
That was
fair enough.
That was him, not me. It might have been a conversation between him and the platoon sergeant. I don't know.
Okay.
All I know is I'm a 19-year-old skinny kid. I mean, I'm a little bit bigger now, but I was the same height back then. Just, when I started basic training, I was 139 pounds. I had to gain weight to join the Army.
Andrew's very tall. He's very tall.
I'm only like a foot taller than you. It's fine.
Even more. But you were a tall, skinny guy, and you got chosen to be the resident expert on this very huge weapon.
Yes.
Okay.
And I absolutely love the weapon. I got to shoot it quite a few times, especially in training. I only shot live rounds out of it once. Not really going to get into that. But during this incident, that's on my truck, and the way my truck was angled, for the way the squad leader put his truck when we pulled into the Iraqi police station, it was kind of facing right down the road. It was like a T intersection. He was facing right down one road, and you could see everything on both roads coming up. So that's where I was going to be.
I see. Because again, this is because they had some sort of intel that there was a threat possibly coming down the line.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm up in the tower. All I know is that they come up and they're like, hey, you're going to go to the truck and you're going to, pull security using your truck in the Mark 19. And at the time, I also had my 249, my SAW, the squad automatic weapon. It's basically just a machine gun version of the M4, which is an AR-15, basically. So I've got that and a small little ammo can in the tower with me. So I start to come out of this tower, and I've got weapon in one hand, ammo can in the other, and I've made this trip down this tower many times over the past month
Stairs,
or so.
I assume.
Ish. They definitely built them, but I wouldn't say they built them well.
What materials are they made out of?
Normal materials that you build any kind of stairs is like metal and wood, but
right.
I think the top stair was like overutilized or something, but it was like angled down just a little bit. So I'm about 10 feet off the top of this Iraqi police station, and I've got weapon in one hand, ammo can in the other. I've got my vest on. I've got my helmet on. I've got all my gear. I've got ammo on, and I've got my pistol. I'm loaded down.
And as far as you know, you're going down to man your very intense weapon in order for. Okay, got it.
So
continue.
I will say that I made it down the stairs. I made it down the stairs of the tower, and it's just a tower with an outside staircase right to the roof. And I made it down. Not the way I preferred.
How'd that go?
I took the first step, and that's all I remember. Next thing you know, I've got everybody around me trying to pick me up, and they're like, "Hey, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay." They're stripping my stuff off, making sure nothing's broken or anything like that. I missed the first step, and I just went straight head first down.
Oh, geez.
Luckily, I had my helmet on.
Did you face plant?
I think because we always have eye protection. We always protect the eyes. And the glasses I had, they kind of jabbed into my nose and cut it up a little bit. I broke my left elbow. So I was, out of the fight for a couple weeks. Luckily, I was 19 years old, so I healed up quickly. If that happened now, in 6 months down the road, let's do some physical therapy to try and get my arm working again.
For the record, the elbow, there's a few bones in your body that are curved nicely in order to be able to take impact and movement. And the elbow is one of them. It's a hard bone to break, so you must have came down with some force.
My elbow, I think, probably hit the bottom stair as I was coming down.
How many stairs in between the top and the bottom?
I don't remember. All I know is about 10 feet.
Okay.
And it was a hell of a first step. I would say that.
Bet. So you were out of commission for the next couple weeks due to that injury. So, I mean,
I didn't come home for it though.
You're in a war zone. You're in a war zone. You're about to go man your Mark 19. You have all your weapons on you. Turns out the biggest threat was stairs.
Yeah.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Now, I'm not gonna lie. I did, use that story to try and, make myself seem awesome. Be like, oh, I got blown out of a tower. It's dumb teenager stuff. And my old squad leader still makes fun of me about it. My old best friend still makes fun of me about it. I was deployed with both of them on that deployment, and people will still poke fun at it. But looking back, it's a funny story.
How'd you feel about it afterwards? Be like, oh gosh, I'm out of action for a while, or was it like, all right, cool, I'll take the time off?
I didn't really want to take the time off. So it's kind of like I was forced to sit it out, and I ended up just helping the platoon sergeant because typically the platoon sergeant's taking care of all the logistics and beans, bullets, and making sure we have all the supplies we need and stuff like that. Your lieutenant, they're going out with you, helping out, doing the big command and control thing. But your platoon sergeant, he's taking care of like all the stuff behind the scenes. So I ended up helping out the platoon sergeant in the platoon headquarters for a couple weeks doing this. So I wasn't, completely useless. But when you're in a position and now something has happened and you can't do your job, you feel a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
Like in your position, if you got hurt and you now could not, take your ambulance and go do what you need to do, you're going to feel a certain way about it.
Yep.
That's the way that mentality was with me. And it sucked.
Yeah.
I hated sitting it out. And especially with, some of the missions that ended up happening after that. But, one incident, one of the guys ended up getting hit, and he was one of the gunners. Whether or not he was in the position that I would have been in if I wasn't hurt, I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
There's no telling what what could have happened, what would have happened.
Right.
You know,
Yeah.
you
You can go
honestly
drive
don't
yourself
know.
crazy with that
Yeah,
what if
and,
scenario. Absolutely.
and I ended up having to, just have that conversation with the chaplain, just be like, what if it was me?
Mhm.
Why wasn't I there? So you always second guess, but the guy that got hit, he had a little bit of nerve damage in his elbow. He got shot in the left elbow. So both of
Oh,
us had elbow injuries. His was a little bit worse,
yeah.
but he survived.
Okay.
He went
Good.
home after that. I never really found out what happened to him after he went home, but he got discharged. But he's alive, so that's a positive of it.
Right.
It sucks that he got hit, but it's something that you have to come to terms with when you're going into a combat scenario.
How did you come to terms with that, being such a young guy? And I imagine this is true for so many new military recruits and going over actually in country and going into combat. Like, how did you personally come to terms with, okay, I might realistically die in this situation? How did you have to mentally prepare for that? How did you? I imagine some people just deny it.
Tempted to think I was preparing for it before the deployment, but I don't think I was ever fully prepared. But a lot of everything that I dealt with, especially mentally, what came from long conversations with leadership. Like my squad leader that I had on my first deployment, it will always be one of the biggest mentors I have ever had in my entire life. And he's, everybody, called my mom, just like we were talking earlier, but he's the one that didn't. He looked her right in the eye and said, "I'm bringing your son home." So I had the utmost respect for him, and I've always looked
Sounds
up
like
to
from
him.
the beginning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And he took me under his wing. I mean, he smoked me, for doing stupid things, and had to do, extra workouts and stuff like that. I did the dumb private mistakes, and I, had to do a lot of push-ups for it. So, but he always had a way of, no matter what happened, putting it in a way that everybody understood, no matter who he was talking to.
Learning from your mistakes.
Yes, I learned so much from him, and I still, take aspects of that, because I take every leader I've ever had always had some kind of good quality. And I take that and I try and encompass it and make them all inclusive together as best I can. He always took care of us no matter what. And I will all, as a sergeant, staff sergeant, and now sergeant first class, I try and take care of my guys as much as I can and within my ability. So there's a lot of stuff that's out of my control, which, is understood. But because of him, I've always tried to take care of my people as best I can and try and be that umbrella to kind of, protect them from anything, bad that's happening. It's like they're your kids.